Moksha's there for you, but that's up to you. Your spiritual experience, your moksha, is in your hands. It's about how much can you get yourself free. Are you ready to let go?
It's always something I wonder about because I studied Vedic astrology a little bit, and I believe it's an aspect of the Rig Vedas. So I'm assuming it has truth to it. But I've always wondered that if astrology is true and if your blueprint is already written, does that mean your destiny is already pre-planned? And mainly that's, I'm asking that because is spirituality pre-planned? What if in my astrological chart it doesn't say I'm going to be spiritual or achieve moksha? So am I just hopeless now?
First of all, no, you are not hopeless at all. Let's look at how astrology works. As far as I understand it, what it gives us are energies, poles, auspiciousness, inauspiciousness. We as physical beings are energetically impacted by the energies of the universe. Think about it on the most basic level. What is it that causes high tide and low tide in the ocean? The moon, right? Yeah, the moon pulls on the earth in a magnetic way, in such a way that it causes the water of the ocean to go in this direction, then in this direction. So we have high tide and we have low tide based on the magnetic pull of the moon upon the earth. Now, we can measure and know when it's going to be high tide here, when it's going to be high tide here, when is low tide. Now, that's mathematical. Yeah. We know the gravitational pull, we know how it works. I don't personally, but scientists who know it. And they can tell you, if you say, on April 28th at this and this place, what is the tide going to be? To some degree of certainty, they can tell you. That doesn't, of course, take into consideration earthquakes that lead to tsunamis. But to an extent, unimpacted by a storm or an earthquake, here's what the tide will be. Now, let's say that you are going on vacation and that you've rented a home on the beach of California, okay? And you really like to walk on the beach, but you're not a very strong swimmer, okay? Now, let's say you go to an astrologist who's only looking at the moon. Let's say some very, very basic astrologer, not looking at any of the other planets or anything. Not even looking at your birthday, okay? Let's just say a very, very basic person. And you say, when is an auspicious time to walk on the beach? Well, that person can look at when there's going to be high tide and when there's going to be low tide and give you the times for the low tide and say, this is going to be your most auspicious time to walk on the beach. Why? Because you're not a good swimmer. And the rest of the time, that beach is going to be covered with water, which means that your likelihood of getting swept away to sea and not having a nice walk is much, much higher when the tide is high. Right? Yeah. Now, that is only looking at the moon. Now you think we compare, we bring in everything else. It's not telling you, if you walk on the beach at this time, you will die. It's not a definite. It's not, if you walk on the beach at this time, you won't die. Because, you may not get swept away by the ocean, but you might have a heart attack instead, right? I mean, the moon guy who's looking at the pull of the moon on the earth has no idea if you're going to have a heart attack or not. All he can tell you is about the tide. Now you bring in somebody who's got all of the other planets and all of the other pull. So it's just going to give you more and more information about the way that the energies of the universe are working with the energies of you specifically. It is probabilities. It is auspiciousness. It is strengths. It is challenges. It is things like that. It would be like someone saying to you, you know, if you walk at 8 a.m., it's going to be a very challenging day. How do they know that? Because 8 a.m. it's high tide and you can't swim. Now, what a good astrologer may be able to tell you is, you know, this is a day that you should avoid walking on the beach. You should walk in the hills instead. And this is where we get wonderful advice from the Jyotish, who can say, avoid the beach today. Walk in the hills. Extra high tide. But nowhere is it saying this is what is going to happen. Because it's all about how you interact. If you walk on the beach anyway, or you didn't go to the Jyotish who gave you that information, you have no idea when is high tide and low tide. You decide to go out at 8 a.m. in high tide. You get swept off to sea. But you walk in the hills, or you've come down with a cold, you don't walk at all, nothing happens to you. So it's not a definite, here's what's going to happen. It's just a likelihood based on energies and pulls and probabilities and things in the universe. Now, your spiritual experience, your moksha, is in your hands.
That's good to know.
It's totally in your hands. It's about how much can you get yourself free of all of that which is keeping you stuck. Are you ready to let go of your ego, of your ignorance, of your fears, of your attachments, of your stories, of your dramas, of your negative patterns of belief, of your grudges? If you are, moksha's there for you. But that's up to you.